You know, the other day I was looking at my energy use when I turned on my oven, and suddenly the power use spiked heavily. So when I realized that, we had a discussion about cooking things outside of the oven. I have small appliances, so unless we are cooking a big meal for everyone, we should probably try to use those because they're much less expensive. This is the new Aeotec Home Energy Meter 8, and it's providing me with a full view of all the energy use in my home. And not only do I have really nice looking dashboards that display all kinds of great info, but I've learned how our home is spending money through unnecessary power use. So this lets us know when and why we're spending our money. I also like the fact that I can verify what I'm being billed for by our utility. But there's more to this than just walking around seeing what you're spending your money on. So let me show you what you can do with it, how it works, and all the different systems you can connect this to. Let's give her. So what is a home energy meter? And of course, how can it benefit you? Well, I'm gonna demystify this a little bit. Now I've got two sitting behind me right there. These are the Aeotec Home Energy Meter 8. Now both of these are attached to my main panel in my home. So maybe you have a sub panel. I have two attached to that. I'll show you what they're each doing. So this is a single Home Energy 8. And what you have right here is an antenna, because this is a Z-Wave device, okay? It's got the latest technology on it. You have a little radio / antenna here, and that's how it's gonna broadcast out to a smart home hub. We have a power line right here. I'll get into a little bit of the details in terms of what we did with power. And then these two are the measurement lines. So I'll show you what they're attached to, but these are just barrel connectors right here that are attaching to a line. This is like an action button for Z-Wave, and you can see we've got a little indicator. So this is how you do factory resets if you ever need to, things like that. So I do have a second one above, and you can see we're routing along all of these lines, and we have done some work to kind of put it securely against the wall. So all four of our lines for measurement are coming down, and you can see our two power cables also on the side here. So we're very tightly packed together, and then the four lines are going inside, and we did punch out this little hole on our box. The two power lines, however, what you get from Aeotec are basically two little conductors. And so we have four conductors going into here, and it's actually directly wired in to this. This is a plug, and yeah, I got some other things on here. This is where the power is coming out of. Now, let's go in here. What you're seeing, obviously, these are a bunch of breakers. We have a bunch of breakers throughout our home. This is very standard for North America. What's non-standard in here are these two things right here. And these are called CTs, okay? Current transformers. See that black cable right there? It goes through the middle of that CT. Then what's happening is it's coming over here, and you can see it travel up, and it kind of connects with the pink one or the red one. I know it looks pink to you guys, it's red. But that one's going through this other CT. And then what's happening is both of them are coming out on this cable. And then that goes up and out of my home. It's heading that way. So that's actually heading to my garage, and that's the main power cable heading to my garage. So I have a sub panel there, and we just put both of these here instead of getting into that sub panel, so I could have it nicely lined up and pretty for you guys. So that's how these are working. They're measuring the current on both of those parts of the cable, both of those components. So that means this pair is going to one of these, and this one is going to another pair set in behind here, okay? And that's measuring the main cable in my home. So that's how these two are sitting there, and they are actually mounted on the physical mounts that we get from Aeotec. I'm not going to take them off because obviously they're on there, and I'm happy with this layout. I don't want to pull anything out, but that's how those are physically mounted on the wall. Very simple mechanism, and actually in the end, very nice layout. I was very happy with my electrician as we kind of talked through as he was doing this. Now, this little plug-in, this is the breaker for that. So if I want to ever turn these off for any reason, that's how I would do it. It's just this little breaker, and that's actually controlling my doorbell out front too. That's our little transformer for that. So you might be noticing that right here is a clip, and that's actually how you get them on there. You don't have to pull any cables out. You're just opening and closing that over your cable that you want to measure. So it's as simple. It's a clamp-on CT, that's what it's called. And we use these in industry all over the place to measure and actually protect our electrical equipment. So this is a very common thing. It's just been brought down to a home size and a home application. We've already established that the whole point of the Home Energy Meter 8 is that it can measure all the power use for your whole home. It's going to give you that full view into how much energy you're using. But I went ahead and I installed 2 of them because I have big plans in my garage for solar panels on the top and maybe even a battery system out there. Not only can you measure the consumption in your home, but if you're producing power, you can measure that too and see net metering. A lot of people will compare this initially in their heads to a smart switch or a smart plug with energy monitoring, but it's not even close to the same level of device. First of all, there's a bunch of reasons that this helps more, but there are also some technical reasons that the Home Energy Meter 8 is better. Now, there aren't a lot of smart plugs out there that can measure something like your oven. Actually, Aeotec sells one of those devices too, but it's not going to work for everyone, and it's not an easy thing to install. Plus, it's big, and it might not even fit where you want it to go. Also, for systems like our HVACs, especially the ones here in North America, those are tied directly into our panels in a lot of cases, so you can't even use something like a plug to measure their power usage. Smart plugs and smart switches will give you the power usage that is going through those specifically, and that actually becomes complementary to something like this. So if you've already spent money on energy monitoring devices, this is actually what brings it all home for you. But it also gives some incredibly detailed information that, as an engineer, I'm very excited to have at my disposal going forward. Things like power factor, reactive power, voltage, and a few other things are so beneficial when something goes wrong. And here's one of the ways that I know this is going to help me save money in the future. I produced a quick automation for when the voltage goes too low in my home. I'm looking for brownouts, and I'm not saying that this will catch every brownout that occurs and report it to you, but it will catch enough of them, or you'll be able to know when something's going wrong with your utility. They can happen in bunches. So electronics are really susceptible to damage from brownouts, and I've lost televisions in the past. When I see an indication that there are a number of brownouts in my area, I'm gonna start unplugging things. And yes, I think that's gonna save me a lot. And I'm gonna geek out for a minute here. This stuff gets me going, okay? It's a really great reason that you can get this good data out of the Home Energy Meter 8. Aeotec has essentially taken an industrial level device and packed it into something that you can put in your home. They're using these clamps that go around cables that are called CTs, or current transformers. In my previous world as an electrical protection engineer, this is exactly what we use to measure everything that you get out of this. And we also used it to protect electrical systems from exploding. It's actually really close on the accuracy to what we used in the field too. And when you couple all of this great info with some of the best smart home apps out there, they provide you with a really clear breakdown of your energy use, and therefore it's easy to make big changes. It's also easy to make good automations that notify, or in some cases, shut down things that just aren't necessary. For you automators, there's a couple of things that are really important here. Number one, this is the first Z-Wave long-range device that I have in my home, which means for those of you with a farm or an acreage, you have a panel or a cable that's really far away that you want to measure, you can do that. For the rest of us, this uses Z-Wave, so you'll need a hub, but it's Z-Wave 800, which is the newest standard, so it's ready for a long life. And in most places in the world, you're going to be able to put one of these in your home. That's because Aeotec has made a number of versions. Electrical systems just aren't the same everywhere. Now, I have two-phase power here coming into my home at 120 volts, but depending on where you are in the world, you might have 1, 2, or 3-phase power, and Aeotec has made a version for that. Here on Automate Your Life, I like to give the whole story, or at least as much of it as I can. So I connected this to Homey, Home Assistant, and SmartThings. And within these little segments, you'll see some of the automation options you have in each of those apps. This is what's called the Homey Energy Dashboard, and they just released this. Now, I'm gonna show you what you can put on here, and then we'll talk about everything you get from the Home Energy Meter 8, because it's quite a bit. Right now, what it's showing me is kind of my two phases. I have two phases of power coming into my home and their current consumption, and then two phases of production if I have them. I can also put like a net version up here, and I'll show you that in a bit. You can adjust the day that you're having a look at, and of course you can look at weeks and months and even the year, and you get graphs down here. So you can see the current day, and there's the graphs, and more or less I've had AC units affecting what's going on. That's kind of showing me how power usage is going through my home. One nice component is that they're kind of giving you the full breakdown here of what's happened over the day. And if you have things like cars, you also get that on this page. Now we can also see what I've spent over here based on the rate. And if I had solar production, it would show me that. And then I have all the different consuming devices and what they have cost me over the day. So I can even go in there, say show all, and then it'll show me things that have been spending my money. Now, in order to get that here, you have to do a little bit of work. You have to customize what your cost per kilowatt hour is, and then you actually have to put in the rate that you're spending kilowatt hours on all your devices. Obviously, I haven't done that for everything I have in my home. It's hard to explain just how much information you actually have access to. So up here is all named garage, or you'll notice it's all named garage. Now that's because I have a meter that is measuring the power usage in my garage. I also have a main, which is on the main incoming power line of my home. We also have here a phase 1 consumption and a phase 1 production and a phase 2 version of both of those. But when I go into the phase, look at all the data I have access to. This is an amazing set of data, and you can see this was updated 4 minutes ago with all these values. With power, you know, things can sometimes be such a fast update that you want to get it going a little faster. This gives you such great insight to so many things. And then you have things like these graphs. So this is last week's power consumption. I can hold along here, I can travel along, see all the different points that were taken. And of course I can change the timeline on that, and that's just current. You also have the same on the production side, but I don't have production right now. So this is something I'm gonna have to work on now in my home, and I'm kind of excited to do that. So I'm inside of the settings on my phase 1 consumption, and I'm just gonna go into the advanced settings here. You have kind of 3 things: an energy meter mode. Okay, is this our main counter, or is this a consumer? Is this something inside of our home that's just consuming energy? And does this track total home energy consumption? This basically puts it on the top of that energy dashboard. And if you don't want it there for some reason, you know, I've excluded a few things like those algebraic summations. You can exclude it. Now there's one other device, and it's called the main home energy meter. This is the main device that comes in, and it actually has a ton of settings. And this is what you've got to configure a little bit to get things working really well in your home. Consumption settings, selective reporting. So you can choose to do selective reporting or reporting basically by time. What will happen is anytime my consumption is changed by these amounts, then it will report these groups, okay? And it's the same on the production setting side. Now I set these way down, okay? This is watts, so this is 5 watts. I've set it down. That's the minimum. You could set it, and you can set it based on percentage. Okay, so if you select selective reporting, it's going to report every time something changes by 5 watts or 1%. What you're reporting, you can actually pick that too. So I've decided I want all the values for consumption, and there's 3 different reports that kind of come out of this. If you're not doing selective reporting, then you're doing interval reporting, so it's kind of a choice of one or the other, and this is in seconds. So I'm saying every 600 seconds, every 10 minutes, report this. Okay, so what you have to be careful with is with settings like this, it could report very fast, very often. You're going to get a lot of data. You might take up a lot of space on your Homey hub, but you will get really fast data coming in. And you can see right now my consumption just changed. It went from 201 to 200. It's going to change quite often. There's my main net consumption changing. Things are moving very fast now because I've changed that with this device. So you can get really fast data out of this, and maybe that's what you want out of this to kind of track some of your issues. I wanted to show you one more thing that you can do with the home energy monitor. From the main units, the ones where you just get power and energy, well, these are the different triggers that you have. So when power kind of gets higher than something or less than something, or your energy consumption gets to a certain level, you can start a routine. But when we look at those phases, look at how much we're getting. So it's not just power, energy, it's also voltage, it's current. On the action side, you may want to at some point kind of blow away the data in one of your devices, and that's what you can do in each one of these. You can reset the total consumption, yield, power values, those things with this meter. With the Home Energy Meter 8, there's a ton that comes into Home Assistant, and I'll show you what it all means and some of the details there. But this is essentially phase 1 right here, okay? And then this is phase 2 in my home. Today, this is kind of what I've used so far, and on each of those phases. You can see it in the graph here, and I can go back to yesterday's, review yesterday's. You can see when I kind of switched over to Home Assistant from one of those other platforms. But what it's allowing me to do is see the overall consumption. Now, if I had the production, you can just edit the configuration here and put in your solar production. So all I would have to do here is choose my electric production off of my main meter. If that's where it was coming from, I just I just do this. I hit that, and then that brings it in, and you can see now I have a solar component. So amazing. It's going to look amazing in here as I add these other components to my home. I just added some of the individual devices, and we can see which ones are consuming the most energy, and it is set against our overall usage of energy, of power in our home. So you're seeing just this little bit of a green line down here, and that's because the garage is like the biggest thing that's consuming. Now that garage is actually my other home energy meter 8. I was able to add it as an individual device if I wanted to, and I'm able to add it as a main meter device and as a production device. So incredible opportunity here. I just put all of the consumption stuff on the left-hand side, and I put all of the production stuff on the right-hand side. The way it works is essentially phase 1 is the number 1. And so you see it on both sides of consumption production. And then phase 2 is 3 or 4. Okay, and then you have the calculated values, the 5 and 6. Those are the summation of those other two, or should be relatively close to that. And that goes all the way down here. Now there's a net version, which is 7. Okay, so if you had production at some point, 7 should show up like that. Now just based on how I've been playing with everything, my 7 looks a little wrong here. So if you have a 3-phase meter or 1-phase meter, you'll have little differences, and you can rename all of this. Then we have all the different consumption metrics from kVA, whether it's hours or reactive power or reactive hours or kilowatt hours, and then our power factor. We have voltage, we have watts. Everything is here that you could ever want from an energy meter. Like, that's actually really incredible information. Now, inside of the device itself, it came in as a Z-Wave device, and yeah, it's the first long range device that I've been able to bring in. So this one's actually on Z-Wave long range. I'll show you that in a second, but you can configure how the data comes in. So this is very similar to Homey. You have the selective reporting, whether or not you want to base it on a threshold being kind of passed by here. So you can see that I've set all of mine to basically 10 watts. I don't have a phase C, so this one doesn't matter. And then I set it to 2% of a threshold. You can set your threshold to basically whatever you want. It's 0 to 100, default's 20. And then you have all these parameters down here. It's so customizable. You can have different ones. If you have a couple of meters like I do, you can have different configuration in each of those. Now, I'm just going to show you really quickly what this looks like from a Z-Wave perspective. So this is the Home Energy Meter 8. You can see that it is using Z-Wave long range. Now my garage meter, I actually attached as a basic Z-Wave device. So you have this option to do either of them. It would take me too long to explain everything you can do from an automation perspective with this in Home Assistant. And this is just one of them, and it's just me looking at it from a device perspective, okay? But value change on all of these different configuration parameters. So if you want to trigger something based off of that, sometimes these are reports, okay? And then we get to all the different value changes. So consumption, production, value changes, no matter what you want to be measuring or watching, you can pick that. From an action perspective though, you can also set the configuration on the fly, and that's a really interesting option. I don't know that a lot of people are going to want to do that, but there is a potential there to change your configuration so you get different reports out based on maybe a situation going on in your home. You also can ask for refreshes of value. So if you're not doing things based on a really tight selective reporting because you don't want to keep so much data in a home assistant, you can refresh the value whenever an automation runs, so you can kind of check things at the time. Within SmartThings, you can see that even though I have the 2 monitors, all I have are the 2 devices. So we don't have that whole set of devices that we can look at individually. You can look up the consumption reports and the solar reports and how to put those in a configuration, but you can see I've set the consumption report time down to 60 seconds, while the production one, I don't need that. I don't have any production. 6,000 to get a report back on that. So we're not quite getting all the same information out of these devices here. Even within SmartThings Energy here, they're not showing up as an energy usage device. And the way this page is laid out with SmartThings, I kind of get it, because you wouldn't want it showing up here under device energy usage again. That would give you kind of double with your dryer and your washer and your other things. So I'm kind of okay with the way it works, but basically what it said is that those were unsupported devices from this. I expect this will change over time, and then we'll get some more configuration options. From the routine standpoint, here, if I go into my power meter, I have for either clamp the consumption production, and the total. I have the power meter or the energy meter, and I can set a matches, equal or above, equal or below, or a range to start an automation with. Again, what you can do from an action standpoint is reset the energy meter. So, maybe if it gets too high, you want to reset those meters just so it's a little easier to look at from a graphing perspective. So that's what you can do in terms of automation options here. Again, I think you want to have a look at the equal or above a certain wattage if your power usage is getting too high. I'm setting that at 3,000 watts. We could just send a notification out. Obviously, you could turn off appliances, things like that, if you don't want to get too high up. Now, when it comes to how SmartThings performs with this energy meter, I did reach out and ask Aeotec about some things. Now, they told me in the near future this will work with Samsung's energy dashboard as well. So you're going to have even more data and more things that you can do with the Home Energy Meter 8 with SmartThings in about a month's time. Also, for those of you using Habitat, this is supposed to be compatible with that, but I couldn't test that here today. So let's talk about install. Obviously, this isn't the simplest device, and if you're going into an electrical panel, you got to know what you're doing. In fact, even with my background in electrical engineering, with all the time I've spent inside of panels and inside of high voltage equipment, I didn't do this install, okay? I hired an electrician, and we more or less did it together. Now, I did just the automation side of things where I added it to our smart home hub while he did all the electrical work. There's just a lot of technical know-how for putting this into an electrical panel, and from a safety perspective, you both have to know what you're doing and you have to know when things have gone wrong. I had an electrician that I was working with pull on a cable once. It was a power cable, and it was for a fairly small device, but it was supposed to be tied down like you see with the breakers in my panel. So it looked just like this, or a lot like it anyways. Now, when he pulled on that cable, it came right out because somebody else hadn't done the job right. And it's things like this that can just go wrong when you're not completely familiar with everything that's been done, or you're not familiar with how things should be done all the time. The way you have to do the power to this device takes a little electrical know-how too. So please just take my recommendation, get an electrician in, get a buddy over, buy him pizza, whatever, okay? It'll be worth every penny you spend to get the options you've seen today. What do I think about the Home Energy Meter 8 after having used it for a number of weeks now? Well, I think it's the cornerstone of energy monitoring for me. There aren't a lot of these products out there either, so you don't exactly have a bunch of options, and the other options tend to be more expensive. You tend to have to replace a whole breaker panel. I also think the quality is really high here, and again, the technical background of a company like Aeotec is really important to the success of a device like this. They've been producing energy meters for a number of years, and I had the Gen 5, as in Z-Wave Gen 5 device, the version of that from many years ago. So not only do they know how to produce an energy monitor, but they know how to make Z-Wave devices. So yeah, it's high quality. It was easy for a qualified electrician to put it in my home. It's been easy to manage, and it's been relatively easy to configure the device. It does take a little bit of learning to get everything working perfectly on your dashboard. And once it's configured and it's working in your home, it is that cornerstone. I was able to save money in the first few moments of looking at the data, and that's without me creating any automations. Now, once you start to add in those automations, it's gonna make your investment worth it. I think now when I build out my smart home with smart plugs and smart switches, and I bring in other energy monitoring devices, I'm gonna be making sure that they contribute to my knowledge about our power use. And finally, this is going to push me towards getting some energy production. So if you're considering the Home Energy Meter 8, I got good news for you. I got links down below, and I have discount codes for you in the description, okay? Now, I was able to pair this with Home Assistant using Z-Wave Long Range or using Z-Wave 800. That's because I had the Aeotec Z-Stick 10 Pro, and I just built a full guide for how to build both a Zigbee and a Z-Wave network in your smart home with Home Assistant using that. If you're interested in getting Zigbee and Z-Wave working in your smart home, check out our guide right there on screen. Otherwise, thanks for watching today, and of course, live smart.